Secunda Manor is a stunning manor house located in Caldicot, South Wales, and has a rather somewhat interesting history to it. The manor itself is over 800 years old, believed to have been built between the 11 and 1200s, that would originally house monks and other church associates, which actually just 100 yards down from the manor itself is the Norman castle that actually still standing today. In the 1500s, Henry VIII owned the manor, although research showed that he never actually visited the manor himself. Through the years, the manor was then passed down to various families, and in the 1970s it was actually scheduled to be demolished, whereas then luckily it got sold and was then renovated into a relaxing medieval retreat that it is known as today. So that's just a brief history on the manor itself, and we as Southern Ghost Society had a unique opportunity to have the place to ourselves for 48 hours. Both the Friday and Saturday, day and night, proved to be very interesting, with the odd unexplainable happenings occurring, the odd knocks and bangs, interaction with the equipment. But there's one piece of footage that we'd like to show you, which still to this day leaves a scratch in our heads. Footage that you're currently watching has been taken from my video camera that I was filming on the Friday night, but footage you're about to see in a second has been taken from a live stream footage that we ran on the Saturday. What makes this footage you're about to see in a moment so interesting is that it was actually spotted or picked up by one of our home viewers during the live stream investigation. None of the team saw this at the time, and it was only noticed, as I said, when somebody commented in. We replayed the footage and couldn't believe what we had seen. So I'm going to play the footage for you now. I'm going to loop this a couple of times, and I'm going to come back in a moment and explain exactly what happened.
Or knocking the whole way. Or knocking the whole way.
So what I'm referring to is the shadow hand that is sweeping across the screen from the right hand side of the screen to the left. I know what you're probably thinking is that it was obviously the person who was filming at the time, is that their right hand or right arm came into contact with the light and has obviously created a shadow on the wall, and that's the reason for that hand shadow figure. This is initially what we thought it was, but upon analysis you can clearly see that this wasn't the case, which once we realized what happened, and it couldn't have been one of our team, or it was actually Lee at the time that was filming, made this even more bizarre and fascinating. We appreciate that it may appear that this footage is one of those too good to be trues, and the logical explanation is somebody would have had to have put their hand in front of a visible light, which then cast the shadow on the wall. Let me just set the scene a little bit for those that obviously weren't there at the time and can kind of get a bit of an idea as to the setup and the environment that we were in. Lee is the person that was filming during the whole investigation and during the live stream. There was no members of the team or members of the general public that was sat either to the right of Lee filming or sat directly behind. And to put this into perspective a little bit, the clip that you're watching now, you can see that the yellow arrow pointing at the chair is the actual chair that Lee was sat on during the live streaming. So it's just to give you a bit more of an idea as to the setting and the environment as to where Lee was sat. There were only 3 people in the room at the time, and that was Dan to the left of the photo, and John, who's directly in front of the camera, and then you had Lee, who was actually filming. So the first thing that I said when the footage got sent to me is that it was obviously Lee who had put his right hand up in front of the light source, which was the torch at the time, which as a result created that shadow being cast on the wall, which would have meant that Lee would have had to have been holding his mobile phone, which was recording the live stream at the time, in his left hand, along with the torch or the light source, which movement of the right hand, even maybe just a little bit, would have been enough to have then cast that shadow on the wall. But have a look at this photo. This is what makes this so interesting and baffling, which we still can't work out to this day. The only possible explanation for this to have happened with it not being paranormal is that it would have had to have been Lee, like I just explained, and it had to have been his right hand or his arm that was moved, because as you can see, the figure is that of a right hand which is coming into the screen from the right hand side. It couldn't have been the left hand because of the position of the fingers and the thumb and the hand itself, so it would have had to have been the right hand. Looking at the photo now, this was actually taken by John. So John is one of our investigators that was sat directly in front of Lee and who just took a few photos through the evening on the live stream, just as general photos. But what's really relevant about this is that notice what hand Lee is holding the mobile phone and the torch in. So as you can see from the photo, everything is being held in the right hand, which makes it impossible that even if did Lee move his left hand, for instance, it would have created a complete different shadow, a complete different image on the wall itself. The shadow is 100% that of a right hand that is coming in from the right hand side of the screen. So for Lee to be holding the camera and the torch in the right hand, if he was to move his left hand at all, the footage that you're watching again now would have been completely different of that of a left hand. Once again, you can see from the photo that there was nobody sat behind Lee, and to the right of Lee is actually a wall. So again, there's nobody there that could have moved their hand in front of the light or caught the light to create that shadow. Again, I know it's one of those too good to be true scenarios, and it does just look like somebody, one of us or Lee, would have put their hand out, which would have created that. But it's really relevant, important, I think, to understand that during the whole live stream footage, Lee was holding the camera and holding the torch in his right hand the entire time. Through all the different photos that we have through the evening, you can see Lee holding everything in his right hand. We watched the whole footage back to see if there was maybe a change, or we could have worked out a change of positioning of the hands, whereas Lee would have swapped everything over, he would have then held everything in his left hand, so his right hand was free for that moment, for instance. But we've recreated everything and we've looked and analysed everything, and not at one point has Lee changed positions of his hands or used his left hand to hold the phone or hold the torch at any time. It was always in his right hand through the entire live stream. So, like I said, we as the team are still trying to work out how this could have possibly happened with it not being paranormal, having to try and debunk every single possible situation and scenario. We genuinely can't think what this could be, being not paranormal. So it's a fascinating one. Let us know what you think in the comments below as to how this could have been, but please keep in mind everything that I've just said in as far as debunking all the possible logical scenarios as to how this shadow has occurred. But it's certainly a very, very interesting one, which, as I said, to this day we're still scratching our heads. But thank you so much for watching the video, and like I said, please let us know your comments and what your thoughts are to this. But we look forward to returning to Secunda Manor and hopefully catching this shadow again.